Hi, Javon.
Uh,
So a couple weeks ago, has it been like a month now?
yeah, I think it's been a month.
I gave you my expired concealer that I have been using past its expiration date. Want to just give like a quick rundown of what we did?
Yeah, so I gathered three samples, like a new Kosas sample, um, Jane's expired one, and I asked somebody from my audience for one of their samples that's only like 3 months old, and we sent that off to a microbiology lab to test it for certain strains of yeast mold and bacteria that are common in the eye area, just to see, if the product actually does fail micro testing.
And we really wanted to do this because I feel like it's been such a big topic and Kosas is such a well-known brand and well-loved brand. I think we just needed to put this to rest.
All right.
Well, I'm kind of nervous because I've been applying that concealer on my face for however long. What are your predictions? Actually, yeah, let's talk about our predictions. So what do you think is going to happen?
So I think the fresh sample would pass because it hasn't been like used to be contaminated with. Um, I think the 3 month old sample would fail because again, people started noticing a smell around that time, and I think your sample that's 7, 8 months old at this point would fail.
And do you think the smell could only be coming from a mold infection or, a mold infestation, or do you think it could be coming from something else?
No, I think it could also just be like the oil being rancid because when we were in Sephora smelling um, like some of the samples there, they all had that smell. And we know that there's like sunflower wax in the ingredients in sunflower oil. And sunflower oil, like if you cook with it, it goes off really easily.
Let's take a look at the results. Oh my gosh, I'm so nervous.
Drum roll.
Drum roll. Can you hear my mic? All right, I'm about to share my screen for the fresh sample. We're good.
And just for like a breakdown for people, aerobic plate count in general, I mean, what's the threshold? Like less than 100 is passable. It's considered
Yeah,
passing, right?
I think if it's not like pharma
It's fun.
and it's
Mhm. Or for
under,
babies.
yeah, or for babies, it's under 100, but less than 10 is a pretty
Mhm.
good way
That's
to.
really good.
Yeah. Okay, we're good. And just for more context, this formulation is a water and oil formulation, right?
Mhm.
I'm going to share my screen of the used sample. Hold on, wait, before I do that. All right, this is the 3-month-old one, and we're good
And
again. Did this surprise you?
this one, no, because I feel like this one could go either way.
Well, I'm glad it doesn't have any mold or yeast in it. I mean, so the smell could really be just coming from the oil itself. It
Mhm.
just could be characteristic.
Which
Okay.
is still a stability issue, but not one that will like lead to an infection.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And now let's look at the one that has been on my face. Okay, this is the expired one.
Oh, still passed.
Still passing. Hey, I mean, this is a good sign, right? This means that Kosas is doing their due diligence and looking at all their PET reports and everything. So, if all these are clean, I think what we really need to learn here is that the internet can sometimes be a little bit quick to judge.
I mean, I wouldn't even say that though, because from a consumer perspective, a product should still have like a pleasing smell. And what are they to believe if, like, again, if it smells like cottage cheese and they're not used to products smelling like that? And I guess the takeaway could just be as simple as if you do prefer buying like a clean, quote unquote, clean formulated product, there are certain things to take into consideration because it is a more natural product. Again, safflower oil is pretty natural.
Right.
Caprylic capryl triglyceride, I think the other main oil is also natural. Natural things expire faster. Well, not things expire; they go rancid faster, um, and that has a characteristic smell. And if you
Yeah.
before, you just have to deal with it, especially if it's on fragrance, because the product has no fragrance at all.
I think a lot of natural ingredients have characteristic smells. I mean, even a lot of like natural emulsifiers have characteristic smells. And that's just something that consumers will just have to deal with. Oops. Oh my gosh. Where'd it go?
Yeah, if they wish to buy clean, that's just like one of the drawbacks. I mean, at least you don't have to worry about the microbial infection that we were like, let's see.
I think we can put this to rest and we can officially say that Kosas is not growing mold in their products, or at least the ones that we've seen. And we've tested a good three. Like we tested a clean one or like a fresh one, a used one, and an expired one. So
Mm-hmm.
we really did our due diligence here.
Three
And
different batches post reformulation because they did reformulate last year.
they reformulated.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what does it say about their other products that use a similar preservative system? Because this really just applies to this specific product. Not every preservative system is kind of good across the board, right? So what does it say about
Right.
the products?
I would feel if it can stand up against the eye, since again you're constantly contaminating the spoiled dough foot by in putting it back in the container after like swatching it on your eye. If it can withstand that, I think it's pretty good because most other products are in pumps that Kosas offers. Like their foundation, I think, is also in a pump, so there's less risk of contamination that way.
Yeah, you're right. A lot of their other products aren't pumps. Their new highlighter one isn't a pump. So I think those are a lot safer in general. And what does this say about clean brands in general?
I still would prefer if they used traditional preservative systems because that should never again this question should never come up like, oh, is it strong enough? Because other chemists have weighed in too, saying like we don't know if that's a strong enough system to support the entirety of the shelf life. But ultimately, it's still. I mean, I can't say it's a bad option because some people are sensitive to parabens, some people are sensitive to phenoxyethanol. Like I'm sensitive to phenoxy, so it's nice that they do have options for people, regardless of like preservative system. And at the very least, this one is still well preserved enough. You just have to deal with like the oil smell.
Yeah. Well, good to know because I'm gonna go buy another one because I had to sacrifice mine. And I really liked that concealer, to be honest. It felt really creamy under the eye, and I know so many people love this concealer, so I'm glad that we could put this to rest and like let people know that it's safe to use.
Yes, buy a non-expired one.
Yeah, buy a non-expired one, and I would tell people to buy one and use it up quickly because I definitely waited way too long. Mine smelled a little bit funky, but I mean, I didn't like you said, I thought it was characteristic. I don't know. I guess as a chemist, we're just like immune to these smells.
Oh yeah, and I've used sunflower oil all the time in cooking, and it's just yeah.
Yeah. Do you have a preferred preservative system that you like to use?
Ooh, yes, it's the trade name is Simdiol by Simrise. But so
Oh,
that's
really?
hexylene glycol and caprylyl glycol, a blend of that. And I usually pair that with sodium benzoate because the glycols are great as like bacterial static, but they don't really work against yeast and mold. But the sodium benzoate is great against yeast and mold. So that combination I like.
Oh, interesting. I don't know if I have a favorite one. I kind of just use a phenoxy ethyl hexaglycerin blend usually. But there are so many different preservative systems nowadays. But the only caveat with natural preservatives, I feel like, is you have to use them at really high percentages
And low pHs too.
and low pHs. So
Mhm.
it really gives you a lot less wiggle room to work with in terms of stability.
Yeah, and a lot of them don't work with certain types of products. Like if it's a cationic product, some of these preservative systems won't work. It's like it gets super specific depending on the system. And if it's a surfactant blend, some of them won't work in that. Or if it's a ethoxylated compounds, it can deactivate the system too.
Show us your bird. Wait, give me a close up. He's so cute. What the heck? Do you know what kind of breed he is?
Yes, he's a green cheek conure, yellow bat, turquoise variety. Because his like tail feathers, not tail feathers, his
Oh,
flight feathers are like turquoise.
that's so cool.
But yeah, he's a green cheek conure. His name is Mercury. I've had birds before, and I named most of them after metallic elements. And I named him Mercury because of like the green and blue color.
That is so.
And also the Greek, well, Greek Roman, the winged god.
He's so funny. I could just watch him all day.
He's enjoying the scratches.
Does he know any words or like does he talk?
He can. Uh, the only word I know that I'm able to recognize, because like conures when they talk, they don't sound like parrots. They sound like frogs croaking. He
Oh,
can say Alexa, and that's because I have an Alexa and I call Alexa's name so many times a day, and so it'll just be like Alexa, Alexa. And he can say other words too. I just can't really make them out because when I say Alexa, he'll repeat after me. Uh,
talk about a millennial bird. I mean,
I think he can also say "What's up," and I know he knows a few words because he practices in his sleep.
hello.
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 All right. Well, today I am joined by Javon and Esther. I am sadly wearing the same thing as I was yesterday, but that's okay. Nobody will notice. Um, I wanted to get us together to kind of have a conversation about clean beauty, how brands should handle a situation like this. Are there any brands that you've seen handle this well? How do you think Kosas should have handled this? I just want to hear your guys' thoughts.
Do we just
Yeah.
start?
Let's do one question at a time.
Okay, you're right. Okay, one question at a time. Let's start with how should clean beauty brands handle a bacteria growth or preservative system failure situation?
If it actually fails, or if consumers think there's an issue.
Consumers think there's an issue because I feel like we'll really never know if something actually fails unless we're sending it out for micro, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, they should be proactive and pull like retain from like recent batches and run micro on that or double check the micro results. Ideally, I know that can add up. I mean, but basic micro to a brand, again, they don't have to pull that many samples. It's pretty straightforward. And after doing that, um, they should, of course, do a recall if there is any detection of like bacteria or mold growth. And a brand that's handled it well, not necessarily a clean beauty brand, but I think they're called the Laundress. Don't remember the name, but it's like a lingerie
Yeah, it's
brand.
them.
And
Hmm.
yeah, and they had a recall, and I know people were panicking, but they did the right thing by actually recalling the product and letting consumers know, hey, these batches contain like a high amount of bacteria or whatever. If you like go on our website, put in your batch code, we'll let you know if your items are recalled and we'll refund you your money. They did that right.
Yeah, Esther, I think you did a video on this, right?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are there any brands that you feel like really handled a preservative situation really well?
Well, most recently I talked to you guys about this about a brand called Soft Services. They had some customers that they claimed that there was mold in one of their products. So they I don't remember if they're recalling all of their products but they're not selling that specific product anymore. They're trying to find out what the source, if any, is of the contamination. They posted a statement, like a formal statement on like their social media pages, to explain the situation and how they're trying to find like find out what's going on with it. I think that's the best course of action to do as a brand, not just making a generic statement.
Yeah.
um, so yeah, I don't use their products, but I saw that their mold situation circulating online. So I liked how they handled the situation.
All right, I'm gonna play devil's advocate for like 3 seconds, but correct me if I'm wrong. Is Soft Services a DTC only brand? Like they're only online?
I don't
They
know.
have, because I want to say they don't have really big retail partners like Sephora or Ulta. So my guess is that it's easier for them to just shut off sales, whereas Kosas, they would have to pull out of however many retailers. They're in Credo, they're in Sephora, they're DTC, I'm sure. So how do you think that factors, or do you think that should factor into them recalling something?
I mean, yes, but at the same time, if they had a product recall, I mean, if they had a product contamination, that would affect these retailers' images because they're carrying contaminated product. That would do worse, and to carry on them and not doing anything about it than to just say, I don't know, like in my opinion, it's worse for them just to keep contaminated product knowingly, knowing that there's a problem than to not do anything at all. I don't know if what I just said made sense, but you know what I'm saying.
No, I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
It is trickier because they have like more to lose financially, but again, they also have more to lose, so they should be more proactive. And dot their I's and cross their T's, because it just takes one consumer to send off a sample, and consumers have done this for like pettier issues such as, oh, I don't know if your product actually has 0.05% gold or whatever, and they have been sued for that. So, if there's consumer concern, it's on the brand to make sure that the product is safe. And if it's not, then in the long run, it's cheaper for them to um, recall than to have a lawsuit where they fail to do any action.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the US is a pretty litigious country. People will sue for like literally anything. So I think like Javon said, they should have their stuff in check. Imagine if, we didn't run those tests. I'm pretty sure someone would have done it. I think a consumer would have done it, because I feel like some consumers are really, that proactive and they want to know. And what if the results, what if it came back that they failed? That's an easy way to do a class action lawsuit, straight
Mm-hmm.
up. So,
Totally agree.
mhm.
Yeah, I totally agree that someone would have done it had it not been us. I'm glad that we did it, although it was kind of a risky move. I'm glad that we sorted it out and put it to rest. Esther, were you surprised by the results?
Honestly, I was. At least I was most surprised by the expired sample. I thought it was gonna fail, but I mean, I was just surprised. I was surprised overall, to be honest. Like, but at the same time, I do think that there was just too many allegations. Everything was allegedly. We didn't know. We kind of just made assumptions. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, the preservative system it's not the best, but as we can see, it's doing just fine in the formula. So, yeah, I don't know. I was surprised.
Javon and I were talking about this yesterday, and we were saying that the sunflower seed oil has a really strong characteristic smell. And I'm sure that you've worked with it too, and you know that a lot of natural oils tend to have a lot of smells going on.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think, on the topic of natural products and natural ingredients, how should a consumer deal with these smells, or like how do we tell, or like how would you advise a consumer on how long to keep your product? Because clearly I'm using stuff that's past expiration date, and had we not done this test, I probably would have continued to use that. Good thing there was no mold. But how should consumers balance, like the smell of a natural product versus the preservation system? Tough question.
That's hard to answer, because I don't think consumers, they're not familiar with like scents compared to us. They don't know like what would be considered like a raw material smell, and what would be considered this is bad. You know what I mean? So I think the only thing that they can do is just follow the PAO. Like once that's off, then it's done. Or if they see other signs of if there's color degradation, if there's separation, I think those are signs that like something else could be going on too. But the smell alone it's not the best indicator, because some raw materials just smell horrible. You guys know that. Like some of the plant extracts, the plant oils, they smell horrible. And yeah, I kind of feel like as a consumer, there's not really much that they can do, in my opinion.
I've said this previously, but yes, I do agree. Consumers should be following the PAO guidelines. However, with makeup, I'm guilty of using things way past their expiration. And that's just how it is with a lot of consumers and having so much variety on the market. Everyone buys so much stuff like lipsticks, and we use it forever. I'm sure
Mhm.
that you guys have done the same. So, as much as I want to tell people to follow the PAO guideline, I'm like, I get it. I get if you want to use it past 6 months.
I mean, yeah, there's that, but then it's kind of also like if the smell and like those other stability characteristics, if you notice something is off, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I think that's your sign, especially if it's after PAO. And so it's kind of like anything's up in the air. But like, let's say if I have experience with a product and I know how it smells, like typically and whatever, and I see another product, see like another sample of the product that just looks off, I'm gonna throw the other one away, because I know like how I already have the idea of how that product's supposed to look, how it's supposed to smell, and so on and so forth. So I
totally.
have like, that control sample to like understand, what looks off and like what looks normal.
I asked Javon this yesterday, but Esther, what is your go-to preservative system?
I guess it's phenoxyethanol, ethoxyglycerin. It's just like because I mean everything else is kind of like ruled out at the moment. Technically, everything
Yeah.
else is kind of like, yeah. That's the most common one that I use like at work, and it works, and don't really have to worry too much about like any cleaning trailers. I know phenoxyethanol is gonna start getting phased out with soon, but that's like my safe option.
That brings up, on the topic of preservatives, I was talking to a friend today, and I know we had mentioned, or Javon, you mentioned that Kosas reformulated their products to remove is it phenethyl alcohol?
Hmm.
Are you, are we sure that that was removed? Because I think it's still in their ingredient list.
No, it's not in the sample I bought, and it's not on
Really?
the ingredient list on Sephora when I reviewed it back in January.
That's so interesting because I went back to Sephora today and I looked at the Kosas website and it has that ingredient there again.
I can't speak for the website, but I know Sephora itself and like the actual packaging of the ingredient I had did not have it in there because I checked for that.
Interesting. Okay, let me check Sephora right now because that specific preservative it's called La Natural Ultra 3, and
Hmm.
it's a blend of phenethyl alcohol plus, I want to say propane diol or pentylene glycol or one of those. Yeah, it's still in here on Sephora.
Are they your screen's blurred, Jane, so
Oh,
we weren't
sorry.
really see that.
Or I'm on the app at least, and it says on the app that it's still in there. And that specific preservative you have to use at 1.5 to 2.5%, which is pretty high. Um,
Inexpensive.
and expensive. So, and I noticed because I went back to check all of other Kosas products, and they're using that same preservative system across most of their SKUs. And they're using that plus sodium benzoate and potassium sorbate. So I want to say that they did have another preservative besides the two that we were assuming.
I need to find the box of the one I bought because I checked and it wasn't there, but I'll double check. But also, phenol alcohol has a distinct smell that you can smell in the finished product. Maybe the rancid oil smell overpowered it, but like I didn't smell it in it at all.
I don't know if they kept it in their formula the whole time or if maybe there was something missing on the packaging. Um, but I think with that at like 2% plus the sodium benzoate and potassium sorbate, it should be good enough as a preservative system. But the oils definitely just smelled really bad.
Mhm.
And yeah, their foundation has the same preservative system, La Natural Ultra 3, and their new liquid IV highlighter has that same one too. I just
Yeah.
wanted to bring that up as like something to share that I was talking about today with a friend. Do you think a lot of color cosmetic brands have very stable formulas? Because I know water and oil emulsions are notorious for being unstable. They separate, and a lot of foundations separate, and you have to shake them to get them back together. Do you think it's a really bad sign to see separation in color cosmetics?
I feel like a foundation, understandable, but when you're working with, I think, pigment, I don't know. I kind of feel like that's like a difference. I feel like there's ways to prevent agglomeration and stuff like that. Emulsions are tricky. They're thermodynamically unstable. Period. Like that's just how
Hmm.
they work. That's how they function. So that one I can give a pass. But like when you're working with pigments, I don't know. Javon, you can.
Emulsions eventually break apart and pigments eventually settle regardless of how thick this is, unless it's just like lip gloss thick. Like pigments settle over time, even in
Mhm.
stable formulas. That's just, par for the course of making color cosmetics. And oil and water, well, inverted emulsions, water and oil are even more unstable because it's harder to like stabilize the water and like suspend it in the oil for extended periods of time, especially a thin formula. Because I know some
Right.
people have also mentioned that closest products separated, which again, that's normal considering the emulsion. That's why water and oil formulas tend to be super thick, like pond cold cream, and not thin, since there's more steric strain keeping
Mhm.
it in solution suspension. So those are normal. It's just the smell that's like, okay, what is the source? But again, if you're using natural oils, especially safflower, sunflower, they go off. Even though they could have used like the high oleic acid version of sunflower, that's a lot more stable than I'm presuming the linoleic acid version they're using.
You don't think they use the hyaluronic acid version?
Not with that smell.
I would assume they did. I don't know. Is that just me being like wanting to give them the benefit of the doubt?
But plus, the linoleic acid version is like more suitable for people with like acne prone skin because it's less likely to clog your pores. But some people still reported like breaking out from the product, so maybe they did use the oleic acid version. It just expired.
Um, well, thank you, Esther and Javon, for joining me today and talking about this. This is really interesting, and I hope that people listen to our conversation and really take away something from this. This we're starting to see this happen a lot more frequently in the industry. So I think it's really important for brands to pay attention so that they know how to handle the situation if it does, God forbid, happen to them. But
Mhm.
thanks for talking with me today. And yeah, we'll talk soon.